clerical service from the School of Education and Policy, Social Policy. Ultimately, he wants to work in education policy, focusing on the ways in which public high schools can improve students' preparation for their post-secondary plans. Before handing it to Sam, a quick note. All of your questions will be answered by Sam. He'll be doing the presentation. If you have any questions during the session, feel free to type your questions in the chat. It will be answered. Or you can send it to me. We'll try to answer all the questions. Thank you, Sam, for taking your time and being with us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction. Thank you for having me. Yeah, so as has been said, my name's Sam. I worked for the past 3 years as a college advisor, so working with high school seniors and juniors on the college application process, financial aid, scholarships, SAT, so a lot of different things. I'm not like a tutor, I'm not a private consultant or anything like that. So my experience has been working with students in schools. It's been great, I've loved it. And so I met Bidari 3 years ago, I believe, through Outward Bound network. Our school, I work out in Queens in Rockaway Park, and our school is part of the Outward Bound network. So that's how I got connected to this opportunity, and we've stayed in touch, and happy to try to support. I'm gonna be upfront in that I don't know everything. I'll try to answer as many questions as possible. And if I don't know something, I'll try to direct you to a resource, a website, a person that might be able to answer your question. So I think you heard a little bit about me and who I am, college advisor, etc. I went to Northwestern University for my undergrad, my bachelor's degree in human development psychology, and just finished up a master's program at NYU. I'm trying to transition into education policy and really try to think about how schools can be better in supporting students in their day-to-day. And so I know now has been crazy. I've worked in a school, and I hope, I'm assuming that there are students on the call, but it's been a crazy time. So you know, thank you for joining me, and hopefully I can be helpful in this crazy time. But I want to hear about you. I threw in some like cheesy images and GIFs to try to make it less boring and a little more entertaining. So if there are students on the call, I'd love to hear who I'm talking to, who's my audience right now. Or if you're a parent of a student, maybe you can answer these questions for your child, so or your student. So I'd love to hear. You can unmute yourself or type it in the chat. Just your name, your grade for this upcoming fall, your high school, and any colleges that you've considered applying to in the future. And if you're a parent, you know, you could also just answer for your student. It'll just help me get a better sense of, you know, how to focus my presentation today. So Sun is going to 11th grade in Bronx Science. Very cool. Feel free to unmute, say hi.
Wow. I think kids are being a little shy here.
Are there students on the call?
Yes, few kids are there.
Okay, cool. Cool. Well, hello. Nice to meet you. Oh, there we go. And please let me know if I'm mispronouncing your name. Is it Ariane? Ariane?
Yeah, you got it.
Cool. Going into 11th grade at Plainage High School. I'm unsure about colleges you want to go to. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you. Welcome.
Nice to meet you.
So we got juniors in the house. Cool. Should kids give, and then we're also getting some questions as well. We have Shreya, rising junior at Syosset High School, maybe Brown. Okay, cool. So juniors, bunch of juniors. Anybody else? Do we have non-juniors on the call? That would be also helpful to know. If it's juniors, it's cool. Makes my life easy. Get to focus on one population. So I have information on for a bunch of different grade levels of high school in case we have younger siblings on the call. Oh, we're getting a couple more. Cool. Tarun, or I'm sorry if I'm messing up your name. Please correct me.
That's correct. That's correct.
Okay. 10th grade at Bronx Science. So a lot of Bronx Science in the house. Great school. Aisha, rising senior at Lakeland High School. Still looking at college choices. Cool. Praneel, going to 11th grade, East Meadow High School. So more juniors. Son is also confused about which college to go to. Cool. Thinking about business. Definitely don't need to know at this point. Armand, going to be a junior at Herrick's High School. I'm from Westchester originally. I'm assuming a lot of these high schools are in Long Island. Is that correct?
Yes.
It's like
Yes.
Long Island high schools. Syosset. Okay, cool. East Meadow. Okay. So a lot of Long Island in the house. Cool. Okay, that's great. If you have any others or any other parents want to jump in, feel free to. Thank you for. Oh, we got a few more. Cool. Sophomore. Okay. Young sophomore, also unsure of what college to go to. Cool. Samar is a rising junior at Townsend Harris, so in Queens, starting to think about college. Daughter's name is Archita is going to start 9th grade. Okay, even younger. Okay, so we got big representation. That's good to know. I'm gonna keep it moving for the sake of time. If you have questions throughout, I believe Vina's going to be keeping track of those, and then we'll try to answer them at the end. If questions pop up and they feel relevant, maybe I'll try to answer them in the moment. I'm gonna try to stay, until 6:30. I don't want to go over time in case people got places to be, but I believe this is being recorded in case you need to leave early. I'll share out my slides. What I like to do with my slides is make them interactive. So a lot of them are, if you see yellow text, that's a hyperlink, meaning you could click on it and it leads you to a website. So I like doing that so that it's just even more information in one place. So we'll send out the slides after the presentation today. So this is just a little bit of agenda of what I'm going to go through. Number one, we're going to talk about test taking during COVID, because right now we're in a crazy time and it's important to talk about the context we're in. I got a lot of questions beforehand, the differences between the SAT, ACT, SAT subject tests. I'm going to go through all of that. The timeline of test taking, when you should be taking tests, studying tips, and then we'll go into a couple questions. So again, feel free to jump in with questions. Feel free to interrupt me, doesn't matter. So here we go. First, I want to say, right now we're in a crazy time. So for all the students on the call, I feel for you guys. I work with students. It's hard. It's a hard time being a student right now. There's a lot that's up in the air, a lot that's changing. There's so much that's changing. We're living in a health pandemic right now, a world pandemic, and the US is not doing well in managing that. So it's affecting test taking, it's affecting college admissions. So, from my personal opinion, I think safety is more important than anything right now. And so, I just want to preface by saying, in any decision, be careful, and health should come first, 100%. a lot of colleges, you might have been hearing, have been switching to test optional for the class of 2021. So that's for this year's rising seniors who will be graduating in the spring of 2021. Some colleges have even said they're going to be optional, test optional for the spring, the class of 2022. So those are rising juniors. So things can change. So, you know, I might say something today, it could be wrong tomorrow. I'm going to try to give you the information that I know today. And if you know something that I don't, feel free to correct me. It's just such a changing time right now. So, but I do want to preface that a lot of colleges are saying we do not require the SAT. We would rather you, the student, focus on your health, focus on your well-being, not go into a classroom if you don't have to, into a packed classroom to take a test with a mask on. Like, there's a lot that would go into taking an SAT right now. I'll talk about it, or an ACT, and I'll talk about what that could look like if you do take it. But I just want to preface that a lot of colleges realize we are in a pandemic and we value your health. Like, you should not be risking your health just to take a test. And hopefully, you know, in this, you know, as we get closer to the spring, and more, and you know, hopefully our country is doing better. We'll have to wait and see. But for now, a lot of colleges are going test optional. If you were to click this link right here, I don't know if you could see my mouse, but this updated test optional list right here, that's an updated list that an organization's running of test optional colleges. Harvard is test optional. Brown University is test optional. There's talks about the University of New York, CUNY, being test optional. So a lot can change. A lot of colleges that were test required, meaning that they required an SAT for admission or an ACT for admission, are saying we're optional now. As a general piece of advice, consult admissions officers, so people who actually work at the college, right? I don't work at a college, I work at a high school, kind of like your guidance counselor. So talk to people who actually work at the colleges. If you have any questions, email them. They want to hear from you. So if you're the student or the parent, you know, directly contacting schools will be the most up-to-date information, going on their websites, etc. Talking to your guidance counselor at your high school. They're going to be more informed about, you know, and knowing you and helping you make the most informed decision about whether or not to take a test or college applications, this kind of thing. I put in, you know, if you're unsure about testing, it doesn't hurt, you know, not putting down your test. And this depends on the college, of course. It's very case specific. I can't generalize and say you should always go test optional. We'll talk about, you know, the different requirements that colleges have had in the past. But if you're unsure, I would reach out to the college first. If you're worried that your test might negatively hurt you, you can always apply a test optional, and then they're not going to look at your test. You don't need to send your testing scores for your SAT and your ACT. I put in 2 links to the ACT COVID-19 updated website that gives you updates from the ACT, updates from the SAT. So you could click on those and it would show you more about those. And then generally right now, from what I'm hearing from colleges, is that they're having a more emphasis in their applications and their reading of applications on your grades. So how you're doing in high school for students, your writing. So if a college is asking for an essay, right? Most colleges will ask for an application essay. They're going to be looking at your writing. They want to see if you're a good writer. And if they have supplemental essays or short response questions, like a lot of more competitive colleges will ask additional smaller, you know, 250 word essays or things like that. They're really going to be looking at your writing. And that's a place where if you're not taking as many tests or you're not spending as much time on test prep, you could really work on your essays. And then they're also looking at your other activities. Of course, it's really hard. We can't do sports right now. We can't do clubs right now, or at least they're virtual. So, you know, they're looking at your other activities. But they're also looking at, not just like clubs and extracurricular activities, but I mean, like, are you helping taking care of a parent right now? Are you babysitting for a younger sibling? You could be very creative with other activities that you have had to do during COVID. Are you working an extra job to support your family right now? Like, you could be doing a lot of different things because of COVID. They just like to see how you spend your time. And so it doesn't need to be traditional extracurricular, I'm the president of this club or I'm the varsity athlete. Like, think about the other activities that you've been doing during COVID, and that's something that you can include on an application. I'm just gonna check and make sure I didn't miss, oh, I lost my chat function. Hold on one second. Zoom, where did Zoom go? I'm sorry. There we go. I just want to, okay, no questions at the moment. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to interrupt me. Otherwise, I'm going to keep on talking. So that's to preface, because we're in COVID-19. I'm going to talk about college testing, SATs, ACTs, etc., during normal times, and ways that it could look different now as well. So who takes the SAT versus the ACT generally? The SAT and the ACT are the two most common tests for college admissions during normal times, as I'm saying. The blue states are where more seniors have taken the SAT, and the red states are where the ACT is more common. So the ACT is more common in the Midwest. That's where the test was originated. The SAT is more of a coast line. So you'll see it in the West Coast and the East Coast. However, we're going to talk about colleges will accept either. I've never really seen a college that says we need both, or only takes one. Basically every college will take one or the other. So you don't need to worry about, do I need to do one versus the other? But these tests during normal times would be, if a college is requiring a test for admission, they would take either one. So either test. This is just a graphic of the main differences between the SAT and the ACT. So, maybe it would be helpful to make this a little bit more interactive. Can anybody spot differences between the SAT or ACT, or know of some of the differences? I'll monitor the chat. ACT has a science section. Yep. Whereas the SAT does not. What about differences in scoring? If we look at the scoring, the ACT is out of 36 points. The SAT is out of 1,600. Very different scoring. There's websites where you can Google SAT to ACT. And so if you took one test and compared it to the other, you could convert the score to see, okay, I got a 30 on the ACT out of 36. What does that equate to on the SAT scoring range? Because they're different scoring. Other things to point out, I'm having hold on one second. Can you guys still see my screen? Okay, cool. The other thing to note here that I like pointing out is that the ACT moves faster. That there's actually going to be less time per question. If you look at the bottom, for the ACT, you get around 60 seconds for a math question, whereas on the SAT section, you're getting around 83 seconds per question. So the questions on the ACT tend to move faster. What a lot of people say, though, is that the content is a little bit more straightforward. And so I always encourage students, if you've never taken both, take a look at both, see how the practice tests look. maybe even score a practice section or a full-length practice test, convert the scores and see which one you like better. Be honest with yourself, see actually how you're doing. But I took both and I ended up really liking the ACT, even though the SAT is more common. I really like math. I like science. I like analyzing charts. I'm good at doing math quickly. I'm not good at doing reading quickly. I like the ACT better than the SAT. A lot of people like the SAT better than the ACT. So it totally depends. The content is pretty similar, but there are some differences. So I just like to point that out straight up and really get a sense of the differences between the two. And you can always take both and see how you do and compare it to one another. I got questions before the presentation about the essay as part of the SAT or the ACT. And so the SAT or the ACT essay, just generally speaking, is optional. Very few colleges recommend the SAT or ACT essay. So, how we were seeing for the SAT and the ACT, there's a reading, math, they're testing general subjects. You could opt in, you could choose to do the essay if you want, it's optional. And I put a link right here of colleges that recommend it. So you could take a look at those and just see if this is something that you want to do. A lot of my students don't end up taking the essay as part of the SAT and the ACT as part of the actual test. So it's really, it's up to you. If you want to try it, I don't think it hurts in trying, especially if you're a decent writer. Like, why not try it? It's its own separate subscore. So when you take the SAT or when you take the ACT, you would get your main scores that I was showing on the last slide that you can see here. So you would get like a reading and a writing score out of 800 for the SAT. 2 math sections, you would tally those up out of 800. The essay is a completely different score on the SAT or the ACT. Same thing for the ACT. So each one of these sections is out of 36. The essay for the ACT is its own separate score out of 36. Separate, it wouldn't affect your writing, your English or your writing score. So I just like to point that out. I also included the website right here if you want to look more and really look through if you want to take the essay. This also just shows a little bit about the difference in the prompts between the SAT essay and the ACT essay, and the difference in time allowed, just so you could get a sense. So, the SAT is really looking at evaluating a passage. So they would give you a reading passage, and then you would have to go through, evaluate it, and then write about it. Whereas the ACT is developing a unique point of view on a topic. They're not necessarily, giving you this long passage. And so if you're interested, I recommend trying them out. There's resources for both that we'll discuss, but I just wanted to explain the essay part of the test and that it's largely optional. So which test should I be taking? This was a question that I got prior to the presentation. The SATs and the ACTs are the common tests that you would take as a junior or a senior in normal times. The subject test, I'll talk a little bit about and how they're different. But whenever a college is asking for a test for application, it's the SAT or the ACT. Those are the 2 main tests required. Again, what I'm saying is you don't need both. You need one or the other. If a college requires a test, you would need one or the other. The ACT moves quicker compared to the SAT, more questions in less time. A good opportunity for students who do well with science. I'll go in a little bit more in depth into the subject tests down here, which are less commonly required. They're largely an optional test. And I'll talk a little bit more about those, but basically subject tests, rather than getting a general sense of your English and your math and your writing, A subject test is very specific and gives you an opportunity to really show off on, a math. Or if you're really good at Spanish, there's a Spanish subject test. And it's a good way to show interest or mastery in a certain subject level. If you're really good at biology, etc. There's a lot of different subjects where rather than taking a general SAT for 3 hours, you're taking a subject test just for an hour specified on one specific subject that's going way more in depth into that subject. So hopefully that clarifies the difference between the SAT and the ACT and subject tests. Different things. There's fee waivers for all of these things to cover the fee. That's based off of income. So if you are a student and your family gets free or reduced price lunch, you can check with your guidance counselor to see if you're eligible for a fee waiver. If you meet the income requirements for free and reduced price lunch at your school, you're more than likely eligible for a fee waiver and would not need to pay for a given amount of tests. For the SAT, you get 2 tests for free. For the ACT, you get 1 test per fee waiver for free. You also could get subject tests for free. So I just included information about getting fee waivers in case people were eligible for those on the bottom here. I'll take a break. Any questions? I know I'm talking a lot. Hopefully I'm not being too confusing, but this is it can definitely be a new topic for people. So if you have questions, feel free to jump in. I'm just going to check the chat.
Sam, there was a question. How many times can kids give SAT exams?
How many times can students take the SAT or the ACT?
Yeah.
If that's the question, technically you can take it as many times as you want. I have a slide that talks a little bit more about how many times to take it. I think generally students take it at least twice. It's usually not just one time and you're done. Usually it's you take this a couple times, and I'll explain why, but most of my students will take it 2 times. Some will take it 3. And some might take it once. However, I recommend taking it at least twice. Whether you're taking the SAT or the ACT for a college, that you would take it twice. And again, this is during normal times. Right now, very different. So I'll leave it at that. Suppose if you score not that well in a subject SAT, should we show that in an application? Great question. So you have the power as the student to show what you want to show to the college. So let's say I took the SAT, the ACT, and a subject test. Let's say I did all 3, and my subject test was not good. You do not need to send that subject test score. You could just hide it under the rug, pretend like it never happened. So that's why it's always good to take these tests, see how you do. It's okay if you don't do well in it. People don't do well in it. These tests are hard for a reason. And so if you don't think you did well on it, you don't need to send it. And then the follow-up question, what is a good score for a subject test? Totally depends. I'm not a college, so I can't say if this is going to be good enough, right? I'm not the one who's reading your application. I would love to and just boom, admit you, and that's great. But I would say colleges can post this data. If you Google subject test scores for a specific college that you have in mind, they'll show you some of the ranges. I think it's good generally speaking. It's hard to say generally, but generally, if I were to name a number, I would try to get above a 650, 680. That's what I've told. If you can get higher than that, that's great. If you can't, that's cool. And sometimes schools will say, we don't care, 600, boom. 550, maybe, I don't know. It's really going to depend on the college. So I can't say one answer. I would aim, as high as possible, obviously. But once you start getting to 700s, I think that's a good sign that you know the subject well, that you're doing well. I have a question. I won't name from who. I'm thinking about applying to a BS MD program, so a bachelor's with a med school program, a joint program. And the guidelines suggest a science subject, SAT, and one math. Do I think a 750 on the test is good enough? Oh, I'm sorry. Well, I'm not reading out who this person is, but they told me not to share the score. I apologize. I think that's totally fine for you, the mystery person. 750, I think, is a good score. So again, it's really going to depend. I think once you start getting in the 700s, it shows that you're pretty well versed in something, but maybe it's high 600s. It really depends on the college. This person did their research and looked. I think you can find this information on colleges. A little bit more about subject tests. This just shows you the different range of subject tests. Languages, physics, biology, math 1, math 2, there's different levels of math, a lot of different subjects. So like, as someone, I loved math in high school. I took the math test. I also took, and I'll talk a little bit more about this, but I also took the US history subject test because I was taking AP US history at the time. My high school offered that, and it aligned pretty well with the subject test. So I tried it out. I didn't do well on it, but I tried it. So this just shows you the list of subject tests. And if you Google SAT subject tests, you can see all of them listed. Again, it's a way of just showing off in one particular subject that you're good at something, or that you're going for something. Let's say you're going for engineering and you want to show off you're good at math. This is just another way, an additional way of showing a strength in a particular subject. Test score is out of 800. It's totally separate from your SAT. So let's say you took the general SAT and you took a subject test additionally. Those are two separate results, two separate. Again, they're optional. I included a list of colleges on here who ask for subject tests. Many colleges will not say anything about subject tests. Of course, if you're looking for more competitive colleges, or you just want to take the test to see how you're doing, I included a list of here on who is really recommending subject tests during normal times. During COVID, again, a lot of colleges this year are saying we don't need any test at all. So I'm more getting at like a sophomore or a freshman here, for those students who are a little bit younger on the call. So hopefully, in a year or two from now, we're healthy and you don't need to worry about your health when you go in to take a test, a subject test. I'm talking to you guys especially, but for anybody, they're optional, just generally speaking, but especially this year. Someone just asked, what is a good SAT score? I wish I could give you a magic number. I can't. It's going to depend on the colleges that you're applying to. One college might look at this score being a really good score. One college might want a higher score. Totally depends on the college. And again, this year, not everybody, this year, a lot of colleges are saying we do not require the SAT. So if you take it, sure, you can send it in, but it's not required. And you can look at that list that I put in earlier to see if the college that you're applying to, especially for the senior who's on the call, or any other seniors on the call, or parents of seniors, a couple of resources that you can look up. Google. You can look up College Board Big Future. Big Future is just a general website that shows different colleges and their middle 50% of SAT scores. And so let's say you got I'm making this up. Let's say you got a 1400 on your SAT. You got a 600 on your reading and writing, and an 800 on your math. Clearly you did better at math. Maybe you're just a stronger math student. you send that score or multiple scores to the college, and then depending on the college, they might be able to take multiple test scores and add them together in a what's called super scoring. And I could talk a little bit about what that is in a second. So, maybe for Binghamton, SUNY Binghamton, 1400 is solid. Maybe for Hunter College, a 1400 is on the higher end. So totally depends on the college. I cannot tell you what is a good SAT score, and it really depends, right? So like if you're starting at a 1000 and get to a 1200, that's a big jump. If you're starting at a 1200 and you get to a 1300, that's a jump. So it also depends on where the student is starting from. Jumping 100, 200 points is a lot. So I can't give you a magic number. I would say Google the school, what they've taken in years past. Once you start getting into more competitive colleges, if you're looking at Ivy League colleges, if you're looking at, Binghamton, Stony Brook in New York, if you're looking at Baruch and Hunter, some of the more competitive colleges, I would aim for above a 1300 at the least, if not above a 1400 during normal times. Again, a lot of colleges are SAT optional, so I just want to preface that, but hopefully that helps answer that. Subject tests, I've talked a bunch about, but basically you can line them up with what subject you're taking in school. I'm going to keep moving, but if you have more questions about subject tests, let me know. When should I take the SAT or the ACT? So again, this really depends on how much you studied, where you're at. Have you taken the PSAT yet? Someone asked me before, have you taken, if I haven't taken the PSAT, do I jump to the SAT? I would take the PSAT. A lot of high schools offer it for free, or offer it as, you could take it and pay for it, or if you're eligible for the fee waiver, you can get the fee waiver to cover it. But the PSAT is supposed to really feel like the SAT. And so I would take that first, or at least a couple practice tests before even thinking about taking the real thing. The decision really depends on how much, where you're at, how much you've studied. If you've studied a month, I don't think that's enough time to really show that you to really do your best on the test. I would think at least, I tell my students, at least 2, 3, 4, 5 months before you can really start seeing a difference. These tests are hard. They're testing a lot on what you learned in high school, but they're also, you have to learn the test a lot of the time, and it's going to feel different, which is normal. So it's okay if it feels challenging. It should feel challenging. But when you should take it, for a lot of the juniors on the call, during normal times, I would tell you, think about taking it this spring. So spring of 2021 for a junior. And again, if this is safe, right? Health and safety is number one. Look into maybe taking it in maybe once in the winter just to see how it feels. And then definitely take it again in the spring, March or April. I didn't see many New York City public high school students, but if there are students who go to a New York City public high school, some in the past, they've offered the test for free. So you could think about that for everybody, regardless of fee waiver or not. So if you're a junior this fall, you can see if your school might offer it this spring, but things might change. So I wouldn't count on it. But I'm just talking about in the past. If you're a senior and you're looking at a college that's still requiring the test, and you can take it safely, and you and your family are comfortable taking it, then you could take it this fall. And I'll show you in a second the dates of when you could take it. You could also Google SAT and when those are happening. Any questions? I need to run for 2 seconds. I'll be right back. But if you have a question, just put it in the chat. I'm seeing a couple website, questions about studying for the math and the English. I'll get to that in a second. I see another website, another question about websites or tutoring or practice. I'll also get to that in a second. Anything about when you should take the SAT or the ACT? Feel free to type in the chat. Sorry, 1 second. It is very hot, so I'm turning on my air conditioner. That is why I'm leaving. Sorry. Should SAT give with or without essay? Yeah, it's a good question, and we kind of just talked about it a little bit. So when I go back to, hold on, I'll show you. So this is for Trip T. I'm sorry if I'm getting your name wrong, but this is a great question. If you look at this list right here, if we were to click on this list, colleges that recommend the essay, take a look and see if you're applying, if you're a senior applying this fall to a college, see if they're on that list. If you're a junior, you have more time before you actually apply to a college until your senior year, but you can look at that list and see if there's a college on there that recommends it. Colleges like Cornell, a lot of the Ivy Leagues will recommend that you take the essay. If you're not sure, I recommend trying it. And if you hate it or the student did not do well on it, did not like it, doesn't want to deal with it, it's largely optional. It's just a good way of showing off your writing. It's another way of just being like, here I am, I'm a good writer, check it out. And it's a separate score. So hopefully that answers your question. If at the end of the day, it's every person is different, every case is different. I can't give you a general answer for everything. So I would talk to your guidance counselor, your English teacher, someone at your school who might know you better. If you have a tutor or a good family friend who's, you know, involved in college admissions, ask them what they think. I don't think it hurts in trying it out, because worst thing that happens is you do poorly on it, you don't send that score. And of course you would want to prepare for it before, but hopefully that answers your question, Tripti. I'm going to keep moving for the sake of time. This is just a quick view of all the tests that are offered. So you'll see new tests for this during COVID. This is just taken from their website. You can see when the test is. Every test has a deadline that's around a month before the test. So if you're not sure, go on the websites that I've provided or just Google SAT, you'll find it. But I just wanted to show you when you would register, and you would register online for the SAT or the ACT. And there's different videos that can help you with SAT or ACT registration. If you have questions about those, they generally take like 15 minutes for an SAT registration, like 30 to 40 minutes for an ACT registration. So make sure, if you're not sure you're eligible for a fee waiver, make sure you know, if you're thinking about the September test, I would try registering as soon as possible. And make sure to register before that deadline, because after the deadline, you know, if I wanted to take the September 26th test and I registered on August 27th for the SAT, I would get billed with a late fee. So just for parents and students on the call, you know, if you are trying to take a test this fall or even this spring, register ASAP. You could always move your registration, especially if it's before the deadline. And with COVID, College Board and ACT are being more flexible with moving your test registration. So if you do it before the test deadline or the test deadline, you don't need to pay a fee for that change. Yeah, any questions on registration? I also put the ACT. ACT is putting a lot of dates this fall with similar registration deadlines. You know, they look different. So you can Google these, they're on the website. Also worth noting that New York doesn't have a test center for July, just in case you're thinking about for next summer. But yeah, these are the updated dates. If you want the most up-to-date information, go on the websites yourself and check those out. I'll take, I had a question about AP credits. I'll take that at the end as well, just because I want to keep moving. So how do I take the test faster? You know, a lot of the times when we're taking the test, we're like, I need to move really quickly. I need to get through this test as soon as possible, or I'm not finishing the test and I need to go through faster. All normal. The test is hard. It moves fast for everybody. I don't care how fast you are. It moves fast. So what are some general test taking resources? Khan Academy. So my name's Sam Khan. I don't spell it like that Khan. I like to say he's my cousin, but he's not my cousin. But you can register on Khan Academy for free SAT prep. I tell all my students to get on it. If you study, there's studies that show if you're on there for 20 to 30 hours before a test of studying on Khan Academy, going through videos, taking practice tests, practice problems, it's correlated with around a 100-point increase on your SAT, which is huge. So Khan Academy can be very helpful, especially if you want a free option, or if you're doing, you know, if you have a class, but you want to supplement it and you want more personalized tutoring, get on Khan Academy for the SAT. 100%. It's free. You can link it up with your College Board account so that you get more personalized studying. So it would see how you did on the SAT and give you more personalized studying. So definitely check that out. They have free practice tests from College Board where you can take it online and it will grade it for you and time it for you. So no brainer. Get on Khan Academy for students. If you're studying for the fall, the spring, next year, this is a great resource. Also for any subject, generally, they have videos. I'm sure students on the call have heard of Khan Academy. Definitely check that out. And College Board SAT practice tests where you can print out a full-length practice test and take it. The more practice tests, the better. A lot of the SAT and the ACT, they recycle questions or they use similar questions. The more you take it, the more comfortable you're going to be with it. For the ACT, check out ACT.org. As well as Prep Scholar has free practice tests that you can take. Again, printing those out. Once you feel like you've studied, you've gone over sections, and you want to see how you are, you could take those two practice tests, grade them. You know, if you're timing yourself, put a timer on your phone or a timer on your computer, and take those like they're the real thing, right? Like don't have it while the TV's on or your music's playing. Take it like the real thing, grade it like the real thing, and see how you are. And it's a great way of checking your progress. Other just general test taking tips for speed. Number one, when you're going through the test, this is for students, guess and come back. You're not going to know the answer to every question. That's okay. And if you do, you're a brainiac. You're like the new Albert Einstein. Good for you. Like you should, very good for you. If you're taking the test and you're struggling with time, and especially if you're going very slow on a particular question, guess and come back to that question if you have extra time at the end. The reason being is that if you hold yourself up on a question, if you are on question 2 and you're like, oh my God, I'm stuck, I'm having a tough time, I keep thinking, but I'm not sure what the answer is, guess on it. Because if you don't get to question 3 or question 20, right, that question 2 could have messed up your whole section. So guess and come back is an easy tip. Another easy one, if you can eliminate wrong answers, like any test that you guys have taken, Regents or otherwise, you can eliminate some of the wrong answers. So if you know that C and D are wrong, now you have a 50% chance of guessing instead of a 25% chance of guessing. So eliminate wrong answers. Another one that works for some people, and again, some of these tests might work for you. Some of these tips might work for you. They might not work for someone else. Answer questions in the test packet first, and then bubble later. So you guys have probably taken tests where you're going through the test, but then they have a separate, like a Scantron or a bubble sheet. The College Board and the ACT have that too. So you'll have the test booklet and you'll have the answer sheet. Go through the test first, answer the questions first. Once you've answered everything, then start bubbling it in. because it's actually kind of, it can be counterproductive to go back and forth. If you're answering the question, okay, this is A and then A, or C and then C, it can be distracting for your brain to go back and forth. So focus on taking the test can help people. And then if you have time, when you have time, I should say, bubble in your answers. Obviously, you don't leave 30 seconds for this. Leave like at least 5 minutes to bubble in your answers so that you're not rushing. But that's another one. Take as many practice tests as possible. Don't go crazy. Obviously, you want to keep your sanity, but the more you do something, the better you'll be at it. And then find a good studying location, a good rhythm, a good schedule. I don't tell my students or expect my students to study every day, but maybe you could study 2 hours every other day, or maybe you could study 2 hours on the weekend, an hour after school on Monday, 3 hours on Wednesday. Find your schedule, block it out on your calendar, block it out on your Google Calendar, your whatever you have, your planner, and just being like, I'm studying on the SAT or the ACT this day. I have a question. How do students build their resume? I'll talk about that later. What else other than score the colleges want to see? I'll probably also talk about that later just for the sake of time. I want to get through some more tips. I'll go through this quickly. But this is like a reading section. So for your readings, I had questions about how do I do better on the reading test? If you're looking, this could be for the SAT or the ACT. If you just want to do better on the reading and the writing sections, I like reading the questions first so I know what to look for in the reading passage. You don't need to read every word. There's not enough time to read every word in the passage. Do a little skimming. You guys, I'm sure, skim articles, skim your textbooks. That's normal. We don't have time to read every single word. If there's a vocab word that's tripping you up, don't focus on it, right? At the least, you should be reading the first sentence and the last sentence of every paragraph so that you get a sense. What this person did was include summary phrases for each paragraph. So after each paragraph, maybe you want to come up and be like, okay, intro paragraph. And this one is about the dog that got lost. And this one is about how the dog was found. If you can do a summary section, it'll be good for your memory and it'll help when you're answering questions later. So I like that as a good tip for people who are doing reading. Underlining keywords, answering line-specific questions. So sometimes if you've taken a practice test, maybe you're familiar, but sometimes the SAT will say in line 15, what does this mean? Or in line 15, what were they saying? So answer line-specific questions as you read. That's another reason why I like going to the questions first, because if they're telling me I need to know what's happening in line 15, I'm going to read line 15. So I think that's a good tip as well. I already said don't spend a lot of time on vocab. And then these are some websites that can help you more if you really want to work on your reading and going through reading comprehension. Some websites to help you on the bottom there. As for the math, I know math is a struggle for some of my students. Practicing math sections, gathering or memorizing common formulas is, and I put a list of common formulas that the SAT and the ACT require. Check those out. Start familiarizing yourself with them. If you don't understand a formula, ask a math teacher. Go on Khan Academy, YouTube it. And also generally the hardest questions come last. So if you're going through a section and you're at question 2 and you're like, I'm kind of struggling right now, keep going, because 3 and 4 and 5 will be easier most likely than 11, 12, and 13. So just as another tip that I like, the other thing I like to show is that one of the math sections for the SAT, you actually have to fill in your bubble sheet. Whereas instead of answering choice A or choice B or choice C, you actually have to write in a fraction, or you have to actually bubble in a number. And students don't know how to do that at first. So this is just a good practice. And I just wanted to show you what that looked like. So this is for one of the math sections on the SAT, what it looks like. And it shows you how to bubble it in. Someone asked earlier, what are some good extra resources and books to help me study? One that's free online is the College Board Guide. That's just from the SAT. It's a free guide where you can check out different questions, and it's just a free resource. It's not a full textbook, but I think it's a good starting place. It's free. Check that out. I linked that there. Others that I've used or have students use, Kaplan, Princeton Review, and Barron's are popular books. They cost a bunch of money. So if you're looking for free sources, check out Khan Academy, as I've already stated, College Board online, the free stuff. A lot of free stuff exists out there. So you don't necessarily need the book, but the book can be helpful. And so you can find some of these books on Amazon or not on Amazon if you're local bookstores, etc. Buy them used if you want to save money. But I do like, if you can buy a new version so that you can underline them yourself, you could take the practice test in the book, etc. I also listed a bunch of free SAT programs that are in New York City. The Door is in downtown Manhattan. They have a bunch of programs for high school students, not just SAT related, but college admissions and applications, career advising, social emotional health, mental health. The Door is a great organization. Check them out. You can contact them. I linked them there. Let's Get Ready does free SAT prep in New York City, as does Cypress Hills, which is located in Queens. For our Queens students on the call, out in Cypress Hills, I know a bunch of these programs are virtual and that they're doing virtual tutoring. So if you want more, if you're a person that likes more virtual tutoring or like someone to actually make time to tutor you, check those out. I also listed an old list and it's slightly outdated, but you can click on that free SAT programs in New York City and it would show you about like 50 or 60 programs in New York City that have all been free or offered free SAT prep. You can contact them directly, but it is outdated as a warning. And then ask your school counselor for other programs. If you're looking for other programs, sometimes your school will have programs or an SAT elective. My school has an SAT elective. Opt into that. If you're a sophomore, if you're a junior and you want to get more experience prepping for the SAT or the ACT, see if your school has a class or can offer, maybe you can ask your English teacher if they do free tutoring, once a week or things like that. So check those out. Just additional college admissions resources and tips. I put in a little "you got it" picture over here because you got it with a little bit of help. Just some college and career resources about majors and programs and resumes. So for VINA, how do students build their resume? When should students start building their resume? I put in some resources it's a presentation that students can click on that I've made about different college majors, programs, resumes. I like starting a resume, as soon as you start doing things, volunteering, if you got your first job, if you got your first club, anything like that, you could start building a resume. I don't think for any high school student on the call, it's not too early to start a resume. So start it, get feedback on it, but it's a good thing to have ready for a job application. So I hope that answers that question. Virtual college resources. So these were resources that I sent out to my students virtually regarding the SAT, regarding essays for your college application. So someone else asked, what else do the colleges want to see beyond their SAT? Largely, they want to see your grades in high school. They want to see your essay. So every application will ask for an essay. They want to see your writing, and they want to see what you're involved in, your activities. They lastly want to see a letter of recommendation, usually from a teacher or maybe from a job source if you've worked. But those are the big four things beyond SAT. So SAT, ACT, yes, generally they look for that, but they're also really looking at GPA. And especially now that a lot of colleges are becoming SAT optional, ACT optional, they're looking at GPA. They're looking at letters of recommendation. They're looking at your essay and your writing, maybe a resume as well, and your activities. So those are the big four things. So for Tripti's answer, I hope that answers that. I also included a link to a financial aid presentation if you want to learn more about your FAFSA, filing for financial aid. There's a lot of new information out there. Never hurts to get ahead of the game, especially for the senior on the call. You'll be filing FAFSA if you're applying for financial aid, which is the free application for federal student aid. Check out that financial aid presentation if you want to learn more about financial aid. A webinar on financial aid, I included a link there. College Greenlight is a great website. College Greenlight, it's a free website. It's really made for first generation college students. So for students whose parents did not get a college degree in the US, and I'm sure we have some of those students on the call, check out College Greenlight. Great website. They have scholarships, application advice, different, just really good resources and tips to helping the college process. Generally, ask for help. I know some of us think like, I was the person who was like, I got this, I'm doing it on my own. This is a complicated process for everybody. My parents went to college, and for me, this process was complicated. So if your parent hasn't gone to college, it can be even more complicated. There's a lot of vocab and there's a lot of new things that come with this. The more you do it, the more familiar you'll be with it. So don't stress it too much, but ask for help when you need it. There's help that exists, free organizations that exist, your counselors and your teachers that exist that have gone to college and can help you and provide advice. And keep your options open. Like, you never know. I tell my students, don't put all your eggs in one basket, right? Find a lot of good options that work for you, because sometimes this option, maybe you'll get in, but the financial aid isn't good. Or maybe this college is really hard to get into. So don't invest in one college. Sometimes we have a dream college. Find other colleges and other programs that are like that college. If that college has a really good pre-med program, find another college that has another good pre-med program. So those are my general tips. I'm definitely over time. Sorry about that. I tend to talk a lot and have a lot of information. So any questions that I haven't covered, Vina, let me know if there are other questions that you've seen that I have not covered. Yeah.
I think, Sam, you've covered almost all the questions. You did it.
I'll go through some of the private questions that I got.
Yeah.
What are some good websites to study for the math and the English section? I went through those. Kaplan, Prep Scholar, those help you go more in depth into those. So for the reading section, I included those on the bottom here. So we'll share out the slides, and you could just click on it, or Google Prep Scholar reading section, or SAT reading section. A lot of YouTube, a lot of free tutoring on YouTube. So you can check that out. Just make sure it's up to date.
I think there's one question, Sam.
Yeah.
When should I take my SAT if I haven't taken my PSAT yet?
Good question. So for the sophomores, the freshmen, the ninth and the 10th graders on the call, or parents of 9th and 10th graders, you're going to be looking at the PSAT. It's the practice SAT. It doesn't count for admissions. It's just to get a feel for the test. That will come most often in your sophomore year. Some students and high schools will offer it their freshman year, and you could take it in your freshman year. That's cool. But I would take the PSAT first so that you can get familiar with the test. It's not exactly the same, but it's very similar between the two. So by taking the PSAT, you'll familiarize yourself with the SAT. And the score of the PSAT is supposed to give you a sense of how you did on the SAT. So hopefully I answered those questions. AP credits, I'll share that quickly. Someone asked, I was trying to take AP for 11th grade. Do APs matter for college? And do I get the credits while applying? So AP, where do we go? AP credits, so some high schools offer AP credits, other high schools don't. If your high school offers AP credits or AP AP classes, they're supposed to be challenging classes that prep you for college or that potentially offer you college credit. Another program is College Now for New York City public schools, or maybe even some Long Island schools have a College Now program through CUNY, which offers you the chance to take college courses. If you can take it, I recommend. The reason why is that colleges like to see that you're challenging yourself. So if colleges see that they offer AP Physics and you're applying as an engineering major, they want to see you taking AP Physics, and they don't care if you do poorly in it. Maybe you're getting 80s instead of your usual 90s, or 70s instead of 80s. Take it and try it. If it doesn't work, work with your guidance counselor to figure out your schedule. But if a school offers an AP and it's a course that you would be interested in taking, challenge yourself. I recommend challenging yourself to take it, because colleges like to see that you're doing that. If your school does not have an AP course or does not have a college course that you wanted to take, that's cool too, because a lot of times schools just don't have the resources, or not every school offers every single test. So don't stress it. Colleges look at what your school offers. So if this school offers 5 APs and this school offers 1, and the student takes 1 AP at this school and 1 AP at this school, it's not necessarily the same thing. So they like to look at you contextually. They like to look at you in your high school. So I hope that answers for your question, for the person who asked me about APs. I hope that you talk to your guidance counselor more, your teachers more. I recommend taking them, or at least considering them if you're interested. Obviously, you don't need to take all 5. You shouldn't take all of them, because you don't want it to be counterproductive. So if you're taking 2 or 3 APs, you want to be mindful of what are your other classes. Maybe you're taking some easier classes to supplement the APs, because they're going to be hard. So hopefully that answers your question. It's a great question. Research it more, but definitely check those out. Great questions by everybody. Great engagement. I talked a lot, so hopefully I answered a bunch of things, or hopefully I got you thinking about things. If you have additional questions, go through those websites, Google, ask your teachers, ask your college advisor, your guidance counselor. I'll also put in my email. Feel free to email me. Feel free to email me if you have questions. I'll try to answer them, or direct you to a place that has the answer to your question. But feel free to email me if a question pops up in a half a year from now, a year from now. I'll try to be helpful. So best of luck. Any other final questions? I don't know, Veena, if you got any other questions, or we're over time.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you for taking your time and sharing your knowledge. I think we have covered a lot today and answered several questions. I thank Sam for this wonderful Zoom session. Hope this session was helpful for all the parents and students. Thanks to Ajit for helping all the parents and giving back to the community. I think Ajit will take over from here. Ajit?
Yes, Veena, thanks. Once again, I would thank first Sam for joining us and helping all the kids. I think this is one of the important area where we kids needs advice and guidance. And who else better than you can help? I think when we had thought about it, me and Veena were discussing we should do something for this kid. Then we reached out to Badri, and Badri, without even blinking, he said, Sam is the guy. Like, he would help us in the right way. And I think the whole session showed how effectively, like, you communicated with the kids and gave the guidance. I'm pretty sure, like, there is a lot to digest here. Kids will go back and think on this. And come back with the question, and thanks for again extending your helping hand to answer the question if they have any. We are a small community and we want our kids to get all the help we can, and that's our goal, and people like you will really help us achieving that. Once again, thanks. I can't thank more on this. This is a wonderful session, and we do have a recording. That's good for us, so to look back if anybody has any question. And once again, Veena, thanks for all the hard work you're doing in the summer camp. I'm managing all the small kids, now the bigger kids. Thanks a lot. Please continue your effort on this, helping the community. Once again, thanks to all the parents who involved today. I think this is one of the steps we have taken for the first time as a community, and we are trying to improve in all the area. And if you have any suggestions or any questions, please let us know. And if you have any specific question on today's session, if you need any clarification, reach out to Veena and Sam for further clarification. Thanks once again, everyone. Have a good night. Thanks, Veena.
Thank you. Thank you, Ajit. Thank you all for joining us. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.